Okay, so in this clip, we're going to take a look at another technique to help us continue trying to fit this mesh to our actor's face, specifically our actor's face as it appears in the footage here, because that's really what counts. It doesn't matter if we match it to photographs, it needs to fit to this one here, because this is the shot we're using for our effect. So we're going to do a cool little texture trick. So what we're going to actually do is project this background plate directly onto the face. And you might wonder what's the point of that. But it's one of those things that you need to actually see in order to see why it might be important. So let's go ahead and start doing that. I'm going to jump first to my perspective, just 'cause it's a little bit easier to get the camera view out of the way. I'll turn off my transparency, and I'm going to start by adding a new shader to this object. May also kill all the history just to kind of lighten it up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and assign a new shader. This is outside your field of view, but I'm just dropping down to assign new material, and I'm just going to click Lambert. We'll go ahead and name this new material, let's say projection shader. And what I'm going to do is texture the color. So I'll click that button there. And I want a file texture because it's my footage that I want. However, I don't want it to use the object's UVs. It doesn't really have any now anyway. I want it to actually project like through a projector, the way a projector will project onto objects or onto a wall. So I'll right click File, click Create as Projection. Okay. What I want to do then is pick the projection type rather than a planar kind of flat projection. I want a perspective projection. And the perspective I want to use is the actual moving camera. So here under Link to Camera, I'll choose our camera shape. So now I need to actually define what's being projected from the camera onto this geometry. So I'll jump over here to Image, we'll click here, and I'll select my footage. There we go. And I'll hit 6 in the viewport to turn on the texture. Didn't seem to pop on. I've had this issue a little bit lately. I'm going to go back here to our shader, and you'll find it's very strange. For whatever reason, the color didn't actually map. Again, I don't know why that happens, but I've seen it happen many times lately. So we'll just go ahead and try that once more. Right click. Let's do Create as Projection. Once again, switch to Perspective. Select our camera. And we'll go ahead and choose our footage. There we go. Now it projects just fine. And obviously it's kind of strange. It's just projecting this one frame. Actually, looks like it is moving. That's kind of strange. It actually shouldn't be moving, which is a little strange because I've not turned on use sequence. But we'll turn that on there. And so now it'll move. I guess it should be. The camera's moving anyway. But you could see what's happening now is the camera's moving here. And in addition to obviously looking at things so that we can look through the camera, it's actually also shooting texture, and that texture is hitting this object. So great, we've pulled this off. What's the point of this? Well, take a look at this. First of all, I want this not to have any shading information on it. I want it to be just flat texture. So what I'm going to do is jump to my shader. I'm going to go ahead and turn my diffuse off, and instead turn up my ambient. So that should pretty much give me the exact same tone I have on my footage. No shading information of any kind, because all of the colors coming through ambient. I'll go ahead and switch to our camera. And when you look at this here, you might wonder, well, where's the texture? We don't really even see it, right? It's just our footage. But that's not really the case. If I actually go here to select the camera, go to Image Plane, if I actually turn this off to none, you could see that it is there. It's actually shooting the texture directly onto our object. And now you can see exactly where it's coming off of the object. And this is, I just find this incredibly useful, especially for this early stage of just kind of fitting the model. Now, it's not a very high-res model, so I'm probably going to add a mesh smooth. Now, normally I would probably go through, spend a little bit more time modeling, but for the sake of demo, I'll go ahead and just throw a mesh smooth on here. Just go here and smooth. And again, to keep things quicker, I'm just going to kill the history. And now what I'm going to do is actually select, I used to do this with soft selection, but I'm going to use Mesh Tools, Sculpting, and I'm going to use the Grab tool. And now take a look at what we can do. Let's say we come to an area where it's clearly coming off a little bit, like right there. I can just use this tool and begin nudging the mesh. Now be careful, don't use this too heavy-handed. It's really easy to kind of abuse this. But I'm just going to go in there and lightly try to push this back in. So for example, at the eye here, you can see it's coming off quite a bit. So I'm going to just push that mesh over a little bit. I'm not going to go too much. I want to do this from different angles to make sure I'm getting it correctly. You can see it's coming off his cheek a little bit right there. Now, if you find it's a little hard to see, you could always go in and do a little bit more overscan. Just push that in a little bit more there. Let's say we come over to here. You can see we can kind of nudge it back down onto the nose. Maybe on the chin here, it's actually not enough. So I can pull it back out a little bit. Now remember, you're not modeling just in one view. You actually need to treat this like it is a three-dimensional object. So I'd never want to make too many changes at one frame. I want to keep kind of shifting around to get an idea of what still needs to be fixed. So I'll kind of nudge that into place. And it's also important to remember to do reality checks. It's very easy to kind of get lost and only keep making changes here with this tool. But we do want to, from time to time, drop to our perspective and make sure our mesh still looks like a human face, because we could theoretically contort this so badly that it looks okay here as it moves, but it doesn't really represent what the face should look like anymore. So I find this to be an incredibly useful tool, just kind of coming in here and nudging things around. You can see already it's fitting extremely well. I need to fix those areas there. As I come into here, this definitely needs to be fixed in here, so I can kind of push that. And be careful not to push things too far, and kind of collapse the mesh down. For example, I'm a little worried that maybe it's getting a little too thin in here now, so I may just jump to my perspective to have a look at it. And I could see actually we do have a few issues. His nose is definitely off center, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of just shift that over a little bit. I'm definitely going to have to make some indentation over here. That'll be a little bit of time to figure out exactly where. But you could see how even in the perspective I can just kind of crank the texture around to at least figure out where certain elements might be. Now, it's a little tough with the nose, but I can go in there and obviously start shifting around. So this is what I'm going to go ahead and do for a little while now. Let me go ahead and go back to my camera. So I'll spend a little bit of time kind of continuing to shift this texture, trying to get it as close as I can. Actually, it's the model I'm shifting as opposed to the texture. No need to go absolutely crazy. We can always go back in and make as many changes as we need, just even at the vertex level. But again, I find this to be just a great way to come in there and at least get the rough fit. So I'm going to go ahead and end this clip here. When we come back in the next clip, I will have worked for a while. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this as close as I can. And then we'll take a look at how we can start taking this information back into Nuke, as well as creating some UVs and things like that before we go back into Nuke. So I'll see you guys in the next clip.